I've got 8 of the most common prompting tactics that result in either prompt avoidance or prompt dependence. And that's because they work really well. They work really well, you guys. These things get kids to spew out words. They get them to say things. And when you do it in the right place, at the right time, in front of the right thing, when the child is happy, you see all kinds of output from the child. You hear all kinds of stuff by doing these things. That's why I'm telling you they work. They work, but they only work to a certain level, right? They work to get performance, but on the other hand, it backfires because your child, it's too limited. And none of you, I know I couldn't do it, who can sustain not just your own communication, but your child's? So every time they have to communicate something, are you going to be there to help interpret for them, to communicate it for them, to explain it for them? Because that's what you're setting yourself up for. If you keep doing things for and prompting this output from your child, you're never teaching them how to independently facilitate, develop the speech and social skills they need. They're always waiting, stuck waiting or avoiding the next incoming, here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. Do this, do this, do this. Do it my way, do it this way, do it that way. And then you get a good job. Okay? So here are the habits. How many are you doing? Let's take a look. Number 1, you ask your child a lot of yes, no questions. Maybe there are a lot of do you want, do you this, do you that, do you, questions. That's the yes, no response. Yes, no response. Your kids can't answer these questions, right? Like I said, they work to a certain point. Number 2, you withhold objects till your child talks. We talked about that with the chocolate milk experience. Number 3, you sing the same songs over and over and over and over and over, right? Number 4, you ask questions that you already know the answer to. This is a big frustration for a lot of kids. I just want to take a break from the list to tell you about this one because it's so common that people do it without thinking. We're going to talk in a minute about unconscious prompting and how you could be in the habit of doing this without even realizing that you're doing it. And that's what this video is all about, everybody. Once you learn what you're doing and how you're doing this stuff that you think is working so great is actually backfiring, it gives you the opportunity to change what you're doing and get a different result because you're watching this video because your child is stuck in resistance. Okay. And we got to get them out of that resistance. So we got to stop doing these things, even though they work. Okay. So asking questions, that's number 4. You already know the answer to. Number 5 is you use the fill in the blank phrases like cow says, or what does cow say? That's another question that, remember, you already know the answer to. There's no reason for you to ask what does, what is, where is, none of that. There's no reason for you to ask any of those questions. What is that? Your child knows it's a dog. You know it's a dog. There's better ways, okay? Now, you ask your child to repeat words over and over. That's just a no-brainer. You know if you're doing it or not. Number 7, ask your child to expand their words into sentences. Maybe they're using, mama, 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 and you want them to say, mama, come. Or they're saying juice, 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 and you want them to say, I want juice, or something like that. This is not needed. None of these prompting tactics, yes, they work, but they are not needed. They just make therapists look good in the moment, but they do not teach your kids long term. They backfire. Okay? And number 8 is you ask your child to point to, label, or describe objects or pictures. So if you're doing any of these 8 things, there are things that you can change, right? And look at this. This is the business about unconscious prompting because so many videos. Listen, I do video analysis. Let me pull back here. I do video analysis. This is how I work with families. They send me videos of what they're doing with their kids, how they're interacting. And I observe 2 things. I observe what the parents are saying in the environment, and I observe how is the child responding. And if I see any of those facial expressions or body language or literal events where I see the parent taking over the situation, prompting through it, getting the outcome that they want because they're showing off for me on videos or whatever. It doesn't matter even if they're showing off. This is happening. And it's happening so often that so many of these videos I get, literally, if I counted 100 sentences out of the 6 to 10 videos parents send me, and I could count 100 sentences that they said to the child, 98 of them would be questions. It's that many that's happening. That much time that parents are using questions and prompts instead of spoken language that children need. Okay? So here's how it looks. Nearly every sentence, this is unconscious prompting that's happening anyway. You're in the habit, you're stuck. I'm calling you out so that you can change. If nearly every sentence you say is a question or demand, then you need to be saying different things. And number 2 here, for some activities, you assume that the child will be unable or unwilling to respond without your prompt. But other things, you taught them one time and they learned immediately. But there are still some things that you cannot keep your hands off your child. And you cannot stop chasing them because you have not taught them how to be safe. You haven't taught them how to do it better. They're stuck in your prompt dependence. That's some activities, right? Some activities your child they will never get done unless you manhandle your child. And that's a problem. That's a problem. This third one here is that you constantly say no, don't, or stop more often than you model the correct behavior of speech. So now we're hearing questions and we're hearing negatives, no, don'ts, and stops. And that means, again, because you haven't trained your child ahead. And number 4 here is you continue to prompting even through your child's cries, escapes, tantrums, and resistance. You ignore their behavior and you continue to make them do things. If they're pulling away from you, if they're fighting with you, they might not even be crying, but they're literally not looking at you. Okay? And then here's the other one. If you're unconscious prompting, later on, when you lay your head on the pillow after you've yelled at your child or prompted them to do whatever and you didn't get the response you wanted, you feel guilty for yelling or fighting with your child. Okay? So if you feel these things, that means that you're farther into this experience than you believe. Okay? So now what I want to do is I want to give you some tools. Okay? Just like always, I show you why things are happening. And I don't do it, like I said, to make you feel guilty or bad or negative about your experience. You did the best you could. And those prompting things work. I know that's why people pick them up, because they work. It was all what they taught us in therapy school, right? All of those things on that list are what therapists do with kids. Why? Because they only have a very limited time with the child. Limited time. And those who have all day and they're doing those things, like the ABA people who have 6 hours a day with your child and they're all day long prompting. And then they go home and the ABA people say, at home, you've got to do it too. So now you're prompting too at home. When does your kid get a break? And how would you feel about that, right? It's time for change. You need to change your child's experience if you want to get out of prompt dependence and prompt avoidance. Okay. So now I'm going to show you how to do that. Here's those signs again of that unconscious prompting. But here's what we need to do. We need to get conscious about this. You need to think about what is happening here. What are we doing? What are we doing? So let's see. Hang on a second. Let's get back to this. So the first thing you have to do is to replace questions and prompts with slow speech models in full sentences that are fun and familiar and age appropriate. Okay? So that's the first thing you have to do. You can't keep doing those prompts. I know they work, but you gotta shift. You have to shift. And then number 2 is you explore toys, books, and even everyday activities from your child's perspective with patience and trust. Okay? So it's the child's perspective that's been missing in this whole prompting situation. And that's what will get you back. I promise you, that's what will get you back. And number 3 is that you discuss your child's expressed feelings. Their expressed feelings. Remember, we told you how they express them through those facial expressions, their behavior. They clearly show you how they are feeling, frustration, fear, and disappointment, and emotionally intelligent conversations that you initiate and have with this child. Okay? Because if you don't initiate and have these conscious conversations about how your child feels right now. You can't just ignore the fact that you have been pressurizing or forcing or heavily prompting them. You have to own the fact that that experience has not been optimal for your child. You have to own it, you have to realize it, you have to discuss it. And you have to apologize if it was you. And you have to apologize if it was you that sent your kid to the ABA and the ABA is forcing them. Because remember, you are the one who's responsible for this child's experience. And if you are a practitioner and you're there all day, every day with a child who will not do what you said, that means that you are not considering that child's experience. So it's time now. It's time to start considering, consciously considering your child's experience. And that's how you do it with these 3 things. It's very simple. The strategies, I always say this on the channel, the strategies are easy, but it's change that's hard. Because remember, you got into these things and you dug in and you went in 150,000% because they worked for you at first. They made the child do things that they weren't previously doing, that look more normal or average or developed or whatever that you were going for there. Okay? Now, when he does this, he looks more normal, so I can feel better. I feel when he does this that he's catching up, so I can feel better that what I'm doing is working. But is it really? It's not if your child's stuck in avoidance or dependence on that prompting. Okay? So let's keep going because, of course, I have resources for you. So once you, if you don't know how to do all these things, that's where all the information on my YouTube channel is going to help you. And this is the key video. I did this video years ago. And it is the #1 video that is helping parents change this situation. It's called Swapping the Prompting Challenge. And the link is in the description of this video. And then there are other resources. So this is just where you begin. So let's say your child is older, but I have a caveat to say, this big notice I've got with Red. You have to realize that your child will change, okay? If your child has been exposed to daily prompting for more than a few weeks, they may actually talk less for a time, okay? And that happens because your child now is seeing what you're saying as valuable. And when you see that shift in them from spewing out echolalia or just labeling the same things or looking at things and saying tree, car, whatever, and they're not talking about their experience or what's so cool about it or what, all of that stuff. If your child is stuck in those things, right? Then you shift. Now you're not doing those labels anymore. And you're saying, when the child says dog, you say, right, it's a big one. It's so cute. Look at how fluffy it is. Aw, it's eating cereal or it's eating its food with its mommy, or it's really hot in this hot sun with all that hair. So its mommy has to give him some water, right? You give this child more. Instead of saying, it's a dog, what color is it? How much hair does it have? Is it with a person? What is it doing? Right? Do you see the difference between just that one experience? Your child says dog, right? Because remember, when your child does in your presence say a thing or do a thing, it's up to you to respond to that. Right? That's what you want from your child, right? When you do something, you want them to respond to you. So this is how we do it. We give them something that they can respond to with their own heart and not a pre-formulated test that there is a right and wrong answer to. What is it when you're both looking at the dog? What color is it when you can clearly see that it's white? How long is the hair? When you see that it's super long and fluffy, more long and fluffy than an average dog. So there's an interesting topic of conversation that you can bring up to talk to this child. Emotionally intelligent conversation. And most parents don't do this, right? Because they don't believe that their children are even listening. And the fact of the matter is, it's true. In a lot of cases, they have shut you down because they have felt shut down by you. So remember, who in their life, if it's not you, is doing this? Because you are seeing the signs of prompt avoidance or prompt dependence. And it's coming from somewhere. And that one influence is what's blocking your child's entire future of spoken language development. It's that serious, folks. If they're stuck in avoidance or dependence, they are not learning independently. They're in fight or flight. They're just trying to do their best. They're just trying to get through the day with less trauma than they know they have previously experienced. So they're doing their best to do it right. And the anxiety grows and grows and grows and grows. And the only thing that decreases that anxiety and gets your kid back in the team, as your partner, trying hard, curious about what you have to say and teach them. The only way you do that is when you stop this prompting, all of it. You can teach without prompting. You can. Your child will learn without prompting. They do. So, as a matter of fact, I want to share with you an example. So notice your child will change. And that's a good sign. And it means your child's listening and learning better speech. Okay. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, or you haven't started, or maybe you're new on the channel and you haven't signed up for my newsletter, this is really going to help you, because the strategies that I'm talking about today that stop this is the most common blockage to a child's spoken language, is this prompting business. Okay. When it's happened a lot, and it keeps kids stuck, permanently stuck. They will not come out of it unless you change. And that's the guidance that's in this Get Started guide. So if you have not signed up for my newsletter, do it. This is where you'll see the basic strategies on how to shift prompting into natural spoken language facilitation. It's all right here for you to learn.